After returning to what I thought was my sanctuary, my haven, I was greeted not with warmth, but with harsh words and disbelief. "Why have you come back? You no longer have a place here," they said, as if my very existence was now an inconvenience. The accusation was as painful as it was shocking. They blamed me for having a child born out of infidelity, an affair that never was. I had just come back from my parents' home, where I had gone to give birth, only to find my in-laws waiting, my belongings vanished, and my newborn labeled as evidence of betrayal. The cruelty of their mockery knew no bounds. I agreed to leave, but not without questioning where they thought they could live without me. To my surprise, they claimed the house would be theirs as a sort of settlement. My husband was overly confident, until I revealed my intentions, leaving him speechless and defeated. My name is Susan Koch, a 33-year-old who once dedicated herself to home and family. I met Frank, my husband, through a mutual friend, and we married after 2 years, dreaming of children that never came. Despite our struggles with infertility, our marriage was filled with love, and I had even grown close to his parents. One evening, as we planned to dine out with his parents, I realized the dinner was more than a meal. It was a gesture of understanding from my mother-in-law. Having faced her fertility challenges, she became an unexpected source of comfort and support through my treatments. Her kindness, once foreign to me, became a beacon of hope. As we entered the restaurant, I silently thanked my mother-in-law, whose warmth and understanding had guided me through the darkest of times, reaffirming the unexpected bonds that can form in the face of adversity. Finding comfort and support in my in-laws was a silver lining during the challenging times of my fertility treatments. The dinners with them became a welcome distraction, a momentary escape from the constant thoughts of conceiving. However, when my husband had to leave for a business trip, our journey towards parenthood had to be put on hold. I knew that consistency was key in fertility treatments, and his absence was a setback. Yet, I tried to look on the bright side, hoping that a break might be beneficial for my mental well-being. During his time away, my mother-in-law became my rock. She visited me regularly, offering a listening ear and emotional support. It was a comfort to have someone who understood the emotional toll of fertility struggles and the loneliness of being separated from my husband. Her presence helped me navigate through the emotional highs and lows of that period. Time passed, and upon my husband's return, I felt mentally rejuvenated and ready to focus on our goal of starting a family. But then, unexpectedly, I discovered I was pregnant. The joy was indescribable. After all the waiting, the treatments, and the emotional roller coaster, our dream was finally becoming a reality. However, my husband's reaction was puzzling. A strange smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. I couldn't understand it. Was he not happy? I brushed the thought aside, convinced it was just shock. Eager to share our happiness, I immediately called our families to announce the good news. Everyone was thrilled, and the outpouring of love and excitement made it impossible for me to contain my joy. However, the following day, my husband's attitude cast a shadow over my happiness. He reminded me of his busy schedule and subtly implied that my pregnancy and the upcoming changes shouldn't disrupt his routine. His reaction left me speechless, especially after the emotional journey we had been through to get here. His demeanor from the previous day, combined with his comments, planted seeds of doubt about his feelings toward our pregnancy. Despite the challenges, I believed we were in this together. His focus on work and his apparent indifference to our pregnancy confused me. I decided to spend some time at my parents' house, hoping it was just stress on his part and nothing more. But as morning sickness took hold, the reality of my situation became more apparent. The financial strain of buying ready-made meals and my husband's lack of support at home added to the stress. His patience seemed thin, and his remarks about my inability to keep up with household duties during this time were disheartening. It was clear he was under pressure from work, but it made me feel isolated in what should have been a shared journey. Despite the joy of our long-awaited pregnancy, navigating this new dynamic with my husband proved to be another challenge altogether. Struggling with severe morning sickness during my first pregnancy left me feeling guilty for not living up to my husband's expectations around the house. Yet, I kept telling myself that this phase was temporary and that I'd be more capable once the nausea subsided. Eager to support my hardworking husband and prepare for our baby's arrival, I pushed myself to manage the household, chores despite feeling unwell. Unfortunately, my efforts went unnoticed, And gradually, my husband started spending his nights elsewhere, leaving me to cope with my pregnancy and emotional turmoil alone. The distance between us grew, fueling my anxieties about whether we could mend our relationship before our child was born. Could we still build the happy family I dreamed of? These worries haunted me, especially on the nights he was away. As my pregnancy progressed, I made a difficult decision in my 6th month to return to my parents' home. I had discussed it with my husband, who, perhaps feeling overwhelmed by the situation, agreed without hesitation. The journey back to my parents was a relief. It was a chance to breathe and find peace. I had shared my struggles and my husband's lack of support with my mother, who had been concerned about me. Returning home allowed me to finally relax, something I hadn't truly felt in a long time. In hindsight, I wished I had made the move sooner. The support and comfort from my family were invaluable, and I gave birth to a healthy, albeit slightly underweight, baby boy. His first cry and the warmth of holding him brought me overwhelming joy, a stark contrast to the loneliness I had felt. My husband, preoccupied with work, missed the birth. While my parents shared this joyful moment with me, his absence was a painful reminder of the distance between us. He congratulated us, but the fact that he didn't come to see our newborn son stirred a mix of understanding and resentment within me. Was his work truly more important than his family? Despite these challenges, the joy of caring for my son filled me with a new purpose. The days spent with him at the hospital were precious, marking the start of my journey as a mother. Leaving the hospital, baby in my arms, I felt a profound sense of responsibility and love. The hardships of the pregnancy and my strained relationship with my husband faded into the background, replaced by the excitement and anticipation of the days ahead with my son. Freshly discharged from the hospital and filled with the joy of new motherhood, I eagerly reached out to my mother-in-law. She had been my pillar of support throughout the challenges leading up to my pregnancy, and I was excited for her to meet her grandson. However, living a distance from my parents' home, where I was staying, meant that this joyous introduction would have to wait a bit longer. To my surprise, instead of the warm congratulations I expected, my conversation with her took a shocking turn. She bluntly asked if it was true that Frank and I were getting a divorce. This news blindsided me. Despite the recent tension between Frank and me, divorce had never been on my radar. We had our struggles, sure, but they were born out of stress and the adjustments that came with expecting our child. The notion of splitting up, especially at such a crucial time for our son, seemed absurd. With disbelief, I insisted that the idea of divorce was outlandish, but my mother-in-law's serious tone made me pause. Frank had suggested such a thing? Her words, though hard to accept, prompted me to seek clarity directly from Frank. My heart pounded as I dialed his number, desperate for this to be a misunderstanding. When I confronted him, his response shattered any hope of a simple mix-up. He accused me of infidelity and of bearing another man's child. This baseless accusation left me reeling. It appeared that during my absence, Frank had convinced himself, and subsequently his parents, of my unfaithfulness. This grave misunderstanding explained his detachment during my pregnancy and his absence at our son's birth. The realization that Frank truly believed these accusations forced me to confront the situation head-on. I needed to clear up this misunderstanding in person, to salvage whatever was left of our relationship for the sake of our child. 3 months after retreating to my parents' care, I decided it was time to face Frank and the accusations head-on. Returning to our shared home, I was met not with the warmth of reconciliation, but with cold rejection. Frank hadn't received my message, or, worse, had chosen to ignore it. His greeting was a harsh reminder of the chasm between us, one that had grown in my absence. This encounter marked the beginning of a difficult journey, not just in confronting Frank's misconceptions, but in navigating the future of our family. The road ahead was uncertain, but I was determined to clear my name and address the heart of our issues, for the sake of our son and the remnants of the love that once bound Frank and me together. Frank's frosty welcome didn't catch me off guard. With a steady voice, I confronted him about his intentions to divorce me, highlighting the baselessness of his accusations of infidelity. He retorted confidently, claiming he had not only expelled his parents and disposed of my belongings, but also secured the house for himself. His arrogance was palpable as we entered the living room. where I was greeted by the sight of my in-laws at the dining table and Frank flaunting the divorce papers, smugly declaring his ownership over the house. In response to his claim, I argued that if a divorce were to occur, the house, a gift from my parents, should rightfully belong to me. Frank, however, persisted, falsely accusing me of cheating and asserting his entitlement to the house as alimony. It was his word against mine, or so he thought. Facing Frank's unwavering smirk, I realized he had orchestrated this scenario, believing he had swayed his parents to his side. But his assumption that he could outnumber me and claim victory was a gross miscalculation. As the tension escalated, a twist unfolded. My mother-in-law intervened, denouncing Frank's scheme to trap me as despicable and declaring their departure. Frank's confidence shattered, revealing his panic. He had miscalculated, not foreseeing that his parents, swayed by truth rather than manipulation, would side with me. After ending the call with Frank, I reached out to his parents, sharing the ludicrous accusations he had made. This conversation strengthened our bond and solidified their support for me. They too had grown skeptical of Frank's sudden narrative of my alleged infidelity and his eagerness to secure the house. Realizing his motives were selfish and his tactics deceitful, they chose to stand with me, ready to counteract his plans. But the question remained, why had Frank initiated this deceitful campaign? Our family should have been celebrating the arrival of our child, yet here we were, embroiled in conflict. The answer eluded me. The revelation of Frank's affair, brought to light by my mother-in-law, added another layer of complexity to the situation. His infidelity, not mine, was the catalyst for his drastic actions. It appeared he was attempting to displace me, perhaps to accommodate his indiscretions and claim the house unimpeded. This unexpected turn of events shifted the dynamic entirely. Frank's plan to oust me and take control was unraveling, exposing his true motivations. As we stood amidst the unfolding drama, it became clear that the battle for truth and justice was far from over, but with the support of my in-laws, I was no longer fighting alone. Upon discovering Frank's betrayal, the shock and anger I felt were indescribable. His actions were not just a personal affront, but a threat to the stability and future of our son and me. His attempt to claim the house, a significant asset from my parents, was appalling. Frank's audacity to think he could manipulate the situation in his favor was met with a swift reality check. My father-in-law revealed the findings from a private investigator, originally expected in 3 weeks. Yet the evidence was so compelling that it was delivered early. The envelope he produced contained damning evidence of Frank's infidelity, including photos of him with another woman and a detailed report of his deceitful actions. Seeing Frank in those pictures, engaging in an affair so soon after our child's birth, was a jarring contrast to the man I thought I knew. My anger quickly turned to disbelief and disappointment. How could I have spent 4 years of my life with someone so devoid of moral integrity? When confronted, Frank's feeble attempts at excuses were pathetic. Claiming a momentary lapse as justification for his actions, he tried to downplay the gravity of his betrayal. But his words only reignited my anger. His readiness to use our child as leverage in his defense was the final straw. His actions were unforgivable, and I made it clear that I would rather raise our son alone than allow him any role in our lives. In that heated moment, my in-laws stepped in, offering a semblance of calm amidst the turmoil. They expressed their disappointment in Frank and assured me that they would take responsibility for his actions, including ensuring he provided child support. They agreed that Frank should leave the house immediately, a decision that marked the beginning of the end of our marriage. With Frank's departure, arranged swiftly by his parents, the room felt emptier, leaving me to process the whirlwind of events. Despite the chaos, a sense of relief washed over me. The realization that I was better off without him allowed me to start envisioning a future for my son and me, one free from deceit and betrayal. With the support of my in-laws and legal advice on my side, I was ready to move forward, focused on healing and building a stable, loving home for my child. As time passed, a sense of relief washed over me, solidifying my belief that removing my son from his father's influence was the best decision. The thought of my son inheriting any of his father's negative traits was unsettling. Thankfully, having the support of my in-laws throughout this ordeal was a blessing in disguise. While I felt a twinge of guilt for the burden their son had become, Protecting my son was my ultimate concern. They understood this and willingly took their son away, for which I was deeply thankful. Moving forward, I sought legal counsel to finalize the divorce promptly. To put distance between my ex-husband and myself, and to safeguard my son from any potential harm, I decided to sell the house we once shared. Knowing my ex-husband's whereabouts made me uneasy, and I yearned to start anew, away from the shadows of memories. The house, a valuable asset from my father, sold quickly due to its prime location. The proceeds from the sale provided a financial cushion, allowing me to plan our future without immediate financial pressure. For the time being, living with my parents seemed the most sensible option. Their unwavering support was crucial as I navigated single parenthood. We discussed plans to move to the city once my son reached school age, but those plans were for another day. For now, my focus was on stabilizing our lives in the comforting presence of family. In an ironic twist, my ex-husband's actions led to his downfall. The affair that ruptured our marriage was with a colleague, leading to his termination when the affair became public knowledge. Reduced to working at a factory through a connection with his parents, his life took a stark turn from his former corporate position. This change in circumstances seemed a fitting consequence of his betrayal. During our semi-annual meetings with my in-laws, where they eagerly awaited updates on their grandson, they shared insights into my ex-husband's current situation. Learning that his affair partner had severed ties with him post his dismissal didn't surprise me. While she bore some responsibility, it was Frank's actions that ultimately led to his current predicament. Now, managing child support payments has become his parents' responsibility, answering that most of his earnings support our son. Reflecting on Frank's future, it seemed bleak. His choices had not only cost him his career and family, but likely any chance of starting anew. Living with the consequences of his actions, he faced a future filled with regret, a self-inflicted outcome. 2 years have since passed, and life with my parents has been a sanctuary of love and growth for my son and me. Our upcoming dinner with my in-laws is a reminder of the strong bonds we've maintained despite Frank's absence. Maintaining a positive relationship with them is important to me, as it ensures my son knows family love beyond our immediate circle. In navigating life's challenges, the importance of surrounding oneself with genuine, supportive people becomes clear. As for Frank, distancing myself from him has allowed me to embrace life's new beginnings, focusing on the well-being and happiness of my son and me.